Awesome. We'll move on to the next presentation from Michael Sena. He's the project lead on Uport, which is a self-sovereign identity system that many of you may have heard of at this point. I'll let Michael take it away from here. Cheers.
Yeah, it sounds like it's working. Okay, cool. Hopefully I don't have the same problems that John had before with this mic. As said, yeah, Michael Sena, it's great to be here and speak in front of all of you. I hope to give you a break from some of the technical talks you've been hearing. I know this is a technical community, but we need to also talk about users and usability and some of the key things that may be stopping us from reaching adoption. And so here, I'm just going to talk about the architecture of a modern dApp. We spend most of my time talking to developers, helping them think through identity challenges, user data challenges related to their app, and I'm here to share some lessons. Are we there yet? So I'm only here for 10 minutes, so I'll make it quick, but what got me interested in Ethereum at first was the promise of uniting my identity in one place, taking it from app to app, experiencing a seamless, frictionless web where I'm in control. Are we there yet? Where are we? It seems like all of the dApps are pretty technical. We're focused a lot on decentralized exchanges and some of the core deep protocol stuff, but are we forgetting about users? It feels like the sort of underlying unspoken word of all these dApps are like, how many people are actually using them on a daily basis? CryptoKitties maybe has some users, but I think if you actually look at their user charts, they're falling off. So where are they? And what's stopping us from achieving this level of interoperability between dApps that we were all promised? I think the focus lies in that we're designing for key pairs and not people. We're designing for decentralization and sort of users logging in with a MetaMask or sort of importing and downloading private key files, sort of storing data in, or not even managing user data at all. We haven't gotten beyond the transaction signing interface. And so as we start to move forward, we have to consider this proposition that we've been designing for decentralization. We haven't been designing for usability or privacy. And so there are many ways this shows up, but it looks a lot like developers building POCs with open source tools and not thinking about the coherent, cohesive ecosystem in which this dApp exists. People are worried about proving, can we build it technically, is it viable? Do these flows work? Does the tech work? But we're not thinking about the whole experience, and this is where we're forgetting about users. We start to think about the other two components, such as usability and privacy, our model changes a bit. We actually have to consider a lot of things. It's not like we can just cobble together some components and be like, okay, now we have a coherent user platform. We have a space where users can share data between apps, interact with the blockchain, also use off-chain systems, servers, everything. It should be united into one. And when you think about these types of systems, you realize that the complexity mounts. Not only before, when you were just thinking about decentralization, it's like, okay, well, we can deal with fragmentation, we can suffer in the user experience sense, but hey, it's decentralized and people want that. We can build it and it's decentralized, so why wouldn't people want to use it? But I think once you start to consider actual people in the real world, you have to think about like lifecycle management of user IDs. You need to think about usability, security, smart defaults, and helping protect users from themselves, because at the end of the day, our people and the people that we hope to reach with Ethereum aren't going to need to know about data standards and where I should store my data on-chain or off-chain. It should just work. We need better user management systems, and this is sort of the crux of what we've been working towards at Uport, but sort of me personally, trying to think about how can we make this experience better. And it looks a lot like, with 2 years of research into this, we're sort of starting to get to some very concrete features. Like, what does this actually look like? And I think what we've discovered is there's a marrying of off-chain and on-chain functionality that's required to deliver both privacy and usability that will help us scale. And so for on-chain features, I'll just go through them pretty quickly. Some of the things we're building is we need lightweight user IDs, and these are standards, and you're seeing some emerge already. I know that Fabian put together 725. Uport has released 2, ERC 780 and ERC 1056. 1056 like yesterday or 2 days ago, so I encourage you to go check it out. We need standard authentication protocols. So you hear Alex Vendesan talking about universal logins, similar concept, but this doesn't just exist in the domain of Ethereum. This exists in the domain of web tech. And a decentralized authentication protocol based on user-stored credentials should be a standard, and we should not be thinking about it in the silo of Ethereum, but instead in a cross-chain, like, global context. And there are people that are thinking about this stuff for 50 years. Async or synchronous wallet communication. So with Web Connect or Wallet Connect with Richard, and with Uport, we have our selective disclosure request. This is the ability for dApps to communicate with users and transport these Ethereum transactions and other types of data to a user's client. That's either a web interface, that's either a QR code or a push notification to a user's mobile, but we need a way of sharing this data. Pre-funded transactions. It's been getting a lot of traction in the news lately, but yeah, gas sucks. And so how can we make it better for users? And the answer sort of comes around dApps and contracts paying for their own gas, or third parties sponsoring transactions on behalf of users, so that I, as a user, don't need to know, oh, I'm clicking this button and it's going to send a function to Ethereum versus EOS. Don't care. Shouldn't matter. Mobile Ethereum signatures, also due to security stuff, the enclave on the phone, we believe, is still the best place to store private keys and data for now. We need a way to sign Ethereum things on mobile. That also enables us to remove ourselves from sitting in front of our desktops to use dApps. Mobile Ethereum signatures can be done anywhere. And pairwise user accounts for privacy. It's like, okay, so now I have a unified identity on-chain with all my data there, and I use that same account to log into every dApp, whether that's my government voting dApp or a decentralized exchange that's illegal in my country. I've just exposed my privacy to the world because I use the same account for 2 dApps. That users will never need to know and should never have to think about how to manage their own privacy. Oh, I use this account with this dApp and this account with this dApp. That sounds like a password manager nightmare. So like these things should all be handled behind the scenes, and this all only has to deal with on-chain features. This is just Ethereum. Oh, and there's off-chain stuff too. And this is sort of what differentiates Uport from some of the only Ethereum-only on-chain competitors. And here we've spent a bunch of time thinking about standard user data formats. So what does an attestation look like? What does a credential look like? How does it show up for health, and how does it show up for social? What are those standards? Those don't exist within Ethereum. Those are web standards. Private data storage. How are we going to handle off-chain data for users? Where is it stored? Locally on the device, backed up, symmetrically encrypted to a self-sovereign hosted data agent? Private data backup. If it's stored locally on the device, how does it get backed up? Where is it stored? This whole off-chain storage and management system. Additionally, with the management of this off-chain data, you need interfaces to enable the consent and sharing and disclosure of that data to counterparties, whether they're your friends, your apps, your school, or government. We need a way for users to be able to know what's going on, but not overwhelm them with so much information that they have decision paralysis and choose to opt out. Lastly, key management. This isn't a surprise to anyone. Key management is one of the fundamental things that can solve a bunch of our problems, and yes, seeds are not enough. And so when you bring all of these features together, you end up with a privacy-preserving user management system that works for Ethereum dApps,